What is
Woohoo!
Welcome to another More Unique Monday. I'm Jeff. This is Shelby.
What's up, everyone? How are y'all?
Oh man, Shelby, how is it going, man? How was the weekend?
Oh, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. You know, I got a little bit done around the house. I've been sorting comic books, man. You know, I've got to get the comic book pile in order. I got to.
It's never ending, right?
Well, dude, you know, if you're like me, you pull out a box. Did you catch it? Okay. If you're like me, you pull out a box and you start going through it. It's like what I want to keep, what I want to sell. And the keep pile ends up being about this big and the sell pile about this big. And we got to reverse those. I got to reverse them, man.
It's that whole like Looney Tunes scenario where it's like one for you, one for me, two for you, 1, 2 for me,
yeah,
1, 2, 3 for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, okay. So I forcing myself to try something different. So actually, on my left, I've got a short box full of things to sell, and on my right, I only ended up with this much to keep. So I'm doing better.
All right. So I want to thank everyone who's live with us right now. Las Cruces, as always, the first one in here. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for showing up. We got Jason, Southern Comic Geek is here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us.
Southern.
All right. We got a lot to get into. We got a couple of guests. We don't have just one. We've got 2 guests for you. And who knows, we may have more. The foreign edition show was a popular one. Obviously, we got some questions. We want to dive into it. So let's hit the intro and let's get back to it. All right, this is part 2 of foreign editions that we're talking about. And again, we're bringing in the man, the enthusiast himself.
Since it's foreign, shouldn't it be dose? Hard dose?
Part dose?
That's
okay.
Two. That's
Part
2 in Mexico.
Let's bring in Matt Roybal. What is up? Matt, how's it going,
guys?
Oh!
Triple Nine, Define Triple Nine is here.
Define 999. And again, if you guys want to follow him, his Instagram information is down below. The Facebook group is a killer Facebook group. The FCC, that link is down below as well. And Matt also brought in another enthusiast for us. We got Scott coming in here. We got the foreign comic, Mac Daddy himself right here down below. And he's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This is great.
Oh, man, thank you so much. We appreciate you jumping aboard with us. We had a fun show. Matt killed it last time, so we got a high standard now, so I hope you're up to it. But again, Scott is part of the FCC and the Facebook group, so make sure you guys are joining. If you're not, we're going to go over more questions that you have on foreign comic editions right here. Matthew Fox, how's it going, buddy? Appreciate you coming in. I know you sent some questions in, so we'll get to some of your questions as well, buddy. But again, hey, Matt, how's everything going?
It's going good. I thought the last show was awesome. It was fun just showing off eye candy and stuff. I did, because I can't hold everything in my brain. I did make a little bit of a mistake in that on some stuff. And Scott is the La Prensa expert. Okay, so he's probably one of the most knowledgeable guy on Mexican La Prensas, which would be Marvels. In America, in
my zip code.
No.
And these 4 walls.
But he's, he corrected me. He had reminded me that La Prensa had actually been, wasn't the 60s? La Prensa had been there since the 50s.
Wow.
So I missed an entire decade of La Prensa output. So I'm sorry about that. I've only got so much room in my noodle. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
He knew that. He just forgot.
I'm sure he knows. He's forgotten more than we'll ever know.
There it is. That's the La Prensa stamp, Shelby.
That's
you know
it.
what you
You
learned.
got it, brother.
You learned, but this is the interesting thing. Early La Prensas don't have a stamp. Why is that, Scott?
Why do they not have a stamp?
Yeah, hey,
I guess the branding.
Yeah, the branding change.
It's just the branding. I mean, Navarro did the same thing. It starts off as SEA, and then their licensing spread out past the Disney material into DC's. So they just rebrand. And of course, their symbols change. I think, did you talk about that last time? I can't ever remember.
You did not. We just talked about the lion and the stamp. And this is from 1965. You said they started in the 50s. Like, when did they end, and when, and what were the different variations?
Well, the Witch's Tales, the Cuentos de Brujas, that was in 52. And then you have Gato Negro. They basically did kind of an anthology. But when I say anthology, it's with the different companies. So they'll commingle Harvey material with Marvel or Atlas material, because it technically wasn't Marvel yet. Or it wasn't the Marvel, you know, that we know when FF kicks off, and the little pre-Kirby or the pre-hero stuff, you know, Ditko and all that, the classics.
So one of the questions, again, we're going to mix a bunch of things up here. This ties into one of the questions that someone had.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, if you've got the other window open, can you give me a wrench? I think I lost it whenever you switched your account.
You need a wrench? Sure.
Yeah.
You're going to make it difficult. You multitask right here.
I'm sorry.
There you go. You should have it now. So drop anyone's link that you want to in there. So one of the questions is, obviously this is a rabbit hole when you start going down in these foreign editions right here, and a lot of questions were coming up. Well, obviously, you know what countries are the most desirable ones, which ones started in the 40s and 50s, which ones came on later, which ones have lower print runs, all that fun stuff. But one of the ones was diving into kind of what we're talking about right now is which other countries that Matt mentioned before, you know, make and produce other countries' comics. So like you're saying, Mexico, they were making, I don't know if they still do, like, you know, Spain's and some other Spanish speaking, countries. So is there like one or two countries that do a bunch of them kind of thing here? So what are people kind of looking for when they're trying to dive into all this here?
Where do you start? That
right.
Yeah,
I think
I mean, La Prensa and Novaro were the two powerhouses for republishing American material in Spanish-speaking countries, which is the second most populous language. So it's all over South America, Latin America, Spain. And then you have Brazil is a huge market.
That was another question.
Brazil goes back to the very beginning.
Okay.
They've got Disney material in the 30s, so they were very very early. And then the Abril, you can go read this stuff on the internet if you have the time to think of it all. But the two brothers that started Abril, one went to Argentina, one went to Brazil, and they got licenses early on. I think they actually went through New York first, so they knew what they were doing. But you have Golden Age material getting printed from the very beginning. I'd have to go grab it, but I've got like the Marvel comic #1 in Brazil.
Wow.
That is awesome.
That is awesome.
I like how you nonchalantly were like, yeah, right back there is Marvel Comics #1.
It's the Submariner story. So what they did is this, keep in mind back then, they didn't have fax machines. This stuff would have probably come across on boat, or maybe they could have put it on a plane, but they would get a whole bunch of material from different publishers. I'm trying to remember who did Smash Comics, but they'll get like MLJ, Timely, DC, I mean, Centaur, you name it, they had it. And they didn't just have a magazine for each. They packaged it. So these were like 100-page mensals, and that's the magazine. It's the comic format magazine, and they'll have, you know, a cover page. They'd take, you know, good covers, or they would take splash pages frequently and redraw the splash page, and that would be the cover. And it might have, like I said, 3 out of the 8 or however many there are in Marvel Mystery 1. I can't remember. I'd have to go look again. They might have the Khazar, Human Submariner, and then maybe one other. But then everything else is Fawcett. They'll have a Fawcett story. They'll have a Smash Comics. I don't think they had Fawcett yet. In the early, they didn't have the Fawcett yet, but they got it. Like as soon as it was in Wiz, they started getting it. So
yeah, because that's one of the big questions is, I mean, when we talk about, licensing, usually there's a standard of saying, okay, if you're going to license these characters, you're going to license these books here, here's the format we want you to run in. We have to approve it. It doesn't seem like that happened at all back then. Like they were just grabbing the money. So a couple of questions that were coming through, specifically a couple of Brazil comics, one of my buddies got, he was totally shocked that he opened it up and most of the guts of it was the New Mutants' first appearance of Deadpool in the X-Men book. And he's like, I didn't even know that. How can you tell, which countries are renaming books totally completely and they're throwing stories in together that we don't know? If you're trying to find a first appearance of Deadpool in another country like Brazil, I mean, how in the world can you find out?
Yeah, like this one is Fantastic Four and it reprints as Strange Tales.
I can give you the back history on that. But before that rabbit hole, the licensing piece. So as a historian, what you have to do is you have to take your modern lens of things and remove it. You got to go back.
Throw it out.
The comic book medium was born pretty much around, that 35, 36, 37. It evolved. I don't want to get into a history of my opinion of early American comics because this is about foreigns. But I think the relevance is that the medium was really tied to newsprint and syndication. That's where the money was. I don't think people really cared about comic books as the format, not until they started getting big sales with like Action and Action One and stuff.
It's true.
I mean, Disney switched over from a magazine to a comic format, but it was like mid 40s. I'd have to go look at the date again. I have the issue, but I'm just saying. Everyone started, oh, yeah, you can sell comic books. This format's really taking off. And then they started producing material for comic books. That was what was the first one? Probably New Fun, I think. I mean, the fact checkers are, I wasn't prepared to do all this, but it was like it was New Fun or New Comics. One of those was specific around new material. So they didn't think twice about republishing previously syndicated material. So now you got to take that lens and then say, okay, how else can we monetize? And Matt's probably talked about this many times on his Global Comic Safari, but the licensors, I don't think they really cared too much. Keep in mind, they had no regard or respect for foreign comic artists back in the day. You worked in a mill and you cranked out material. I mean, look at what happened to Schuster and Siegel. They got screwed over because they didn't know how to take care of themselves. But now consider if they didn't care about the American books, how much less do they? I mean, if they didn't care about American artists, and how much less are they going to care about what's going on in the foreign world, where that's difficult to manage? So you get
without the internet.
Right. Oh yeah. You don't have the internet. You don't have watchdogs.
Right.
Yeah. There's no way to really monitor your licensees. It's just,
if someone was real scholarly, they might be able to find some, laws, the international laws where they had agreements for stuff. But apart from that, what you see in the comic books pretty much to me tells the story. You've got in Brazil, you can have Superman on the cover with Human Torch.
Yep.
And that's just like, I mean, to me.
It's now, now you're getting into something cool. I did not know that.
My buddy Sky Ott, he's got a couple copies of that book, and that was one of the first ones I remember. I'm like, how can that be? What?
Right.
And you're like, once you start buying the books and you look through the content, you start to understand a little bit more. You need to have a lot of issues, and you need to have them in your hands, and you start to pick up on it over time. It's daunting as a new person getting into the hobby because it's so vast and there's no documentation that's easily consolidated,
right. Because that was the big question. And I know in the group, the FCC Facebook group, that's the best place you're going to find the information. But a lot of it was, where can I go and find out if I do want to find the first appearance of Deadpool in a Brazil edition? what comic is that? And some of that stuff is not easy to find because it is broken up and it's not something easily, attainable right now.
It's not easy to find, but it can be found through databases.
Well, and also, just think, Robert lives down in Brazil and he meets these lifelong collectors. He's been down there over a decade. So that affords him the ability to talk with people who've been on the ground floor for years and they know the market in and out.
Right.
Dino came into our group. He was a lifelong collector down there. That's where I got the book I'm talking about from. But basically, those are the guys that can kind of tell you, they know more than we do, and then they share that knowledge. Rulo Pantoja was a good member of the community. He passed away recently from COVID, but
so tragic.
Unfortunately, but he was a good example of someone that invested a lot of time in building an online database. Spidermax or Balda Comic, it's the Comic Vault. It's the Spanish. They've got Navarro, La Prensa, Mac Division, all that stuff, and they've got he's got the American contrasted with the U.S. edition, so you can see them side by side. You can hyperlink in between, so you can start to get a sense for the discontinuity of the numbering systems, because down there the printing press had to run on a weekly cadence, so you had to have material in a pipeline. And they couldn't stop the press. They just kept it running. And they kept it running. And they would, I think Matt talked about this last time, the printing press would run out and they had to get artists to mass produce material that was non-canon just to fill holes.
On the bi-monthly La Prensa Sorprendente Hombre Rana. They were running out of American issues to use, and that's why.
So Duran was getting attacked in the community. The Americans brought a lot of attention to his books, and I'm glad he's still alive to benefit from some of that. But basically, they started going after him because he did a lot of swipes. But if he had a huge deadline, and his boss was like, "You need to do this, this, and this to get paid." This wasn't about him being creative. It's not like with Todd McFarlane where he's got a contract and he gets to do what he wants and he's got all these liberties to be creative and he's recognized as a top talented artist. It's great that they do that to these artists now, but back then, especially in the foreign countries, they don't care. Yeah. He was paid to deliver, and if he didn't deliver, he didn't get paid. So he said he worked day and night, didn't get to spend time with his family. And nobody knew that people would care about these books 40 years later. And the context, you got to have the context to understand the artistic licenses that were taken in order to, keep the machine running, if you will. This the almighty dollar, in this case, the almighty peso. So that kind of helps you understand why the numbering systems get messed up. So like Shelby, you had that Strange Tales issue. The numbering gets out of sequence starting in issue 17 because they have to print. They combine Strange Tales with Fantastic Four. So 17, and they alternate. So 17 would be the Strange Tales, and then 7th, and then 18, and then 20, or it alternates. I have to go look at the numbers again, but basically it alternates.
Yeah, this is number 48.
Now there's sometimes when it doesn't alternate, so that I can't give you a rule of thumb because I think issue 35, which is Strange Tales 110, the next issue was Strange Tales 111, but then shortly thereafter they skipped a few issues, and we don't know why. Probably because they didn't get the stats.
They didn't get it, probably.
Yeah, and they're not going to go back and worry about it. They're just keep the machine going. They're not interested in the continuity for the readers. They're just trying to make money.
And that question, and I posed that. And I posed that to Matthew last time was, where we have, something like the Overstreet, and I'm not talking about using the Overstreet as a price guide, but using the Overstreet as how many issues was in a series, or when did it, who appeared in what issue, things like that, using it as a catalog versus a price guide. Because I'll be honest, that's probably most people are using the Overstreet 4 nowadays with the fluctuation in market prices, especially with modern books. So that's what I had that question. And also, and it's kind of an interesting question. I had someone ask, it's like, why would I want to collect a comic book that I can't read?
Well, I guess,
and I admit that's a pretty good question. I kind of gave my answer, like about the culture and etc. and stuff. But yeah, what would you say to a question like that?
Well, I can read Spanish, and that's really why.
I told you he was an expert.
I've been collecting comics since the early '80s, and I've had it all. And for me, it's a lot of reasons why I switched to the foreigns, but the least of which is that American books were starting to get expensive. And it's hard for me to justify holding on to them when they're, escalating in price. And I'm like, at the same time, I was like, I knew the Mexican issues were out there. I just hadn't spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to source them. And I'm like, I really need to get my Spanish skills up. My in-laws live in Colombia. So it's practical for me to speak a second language. So I started reading the books in Spanish to practice Spanish, but at the same time, it scratched an itch, and that was the thrill of the hunt that Matt's talked about before.
Yeah,
they're very hard to find. You can have money doesn't help you. It's like old school. Like when we were, sending off, you go through your comic book and you'd say, okay, I'm going to send off a SAS and self-addressed. That's a self-addressed stamped envelope for you young people. And you get a subscription list back and say, okay, I've got these back issues, and you'd have to submit which ones were your backups in case they were sold out. Because you didn't know what you were going to get. You just got whatever they gave you.
Luck had so much to do with the early days.
The foreigners are a lot like that. The Latin Americans, if you're lucky, they have a digital camera and they'll take a picture and you'll have a front picture. You won't have a back cover scan. They're not going to tell you the page quality, if it's got a crease. All that stuff you can just throw out the door. It's meaningless. It's like going back into the 60s or the 70s with American books. Yeah. And for me, it was the thrill of the hunt. And, to score a Strange Tales 107 when I was a teenager in the 80s, that was not easy to do because you didn't have the internet. Yeah. You had to wait for a comic convention. Now,
yes, I'm still looking for my Strange Tales 107 at a good price.
Yeah, and trying to find the Mexican ones really, really hard. I honestly think that I've only seen 4 for sale since I've been doing this, and I've got one. I bought mine from a guy in Peru, and at the time they had a. It took me a couple months to get the book because apparently they had a strike in the postal service.
Oh, I remember that.
It eventually showed up, but you just don't ever know. And there's no handbook that says you might experience strikes in foreign countries, and maybe the mail is just slow. This is
or customs nightmares.
Customs is always a nightmare.
This was way before COVID. This is like 2015, 2016. So it wasn't, it wasn't that. But I just to say that you go through a lot of work to get these books, and when you find it, you're not done yet. It's not until it's in your hand that you actually get to own the book. Yeah. As far as to finish answering your question, well, I do collect other books that I can't read. So one example would be Star Wars #1. That's the book that kind of got me into comic books when I was a kid. I went looking for back issues. Didn't even know that you could really buy them. And so, one thing led to another, and I'm collecting books. So that's an iconic book for me. Howard Chaykin would joke, I'm one of those, kids that I have a weak spot for that book, not because the art's as good as Neil Adams or whatever, but it's iconic book for me. So I got every issue of the Star Wars #1. Me and Matt sort of tag teamed on that, and a couple of folks were trying to build the set, but that was
God, it's complete. He's
got it
complete. He's got them all.
But
which is huge.
It's fun looking at, like, I like looking at the Arabic one because the fonts and the styling, the way they do everything's just a little bit different that makes it fresh. And it's like a trophy, you know. I like to pull them out and look at the different covers. It's a trophy. I mean, anyone that says they don't like to sit there like Scrooge McDuck rolling in your coins is, kidding themselves. I mean, we're nerds.
Right. And that's one thing that I've heard from a lot of different foreign collectors is it's not so much about, paying the money and getting something, if it's a better deal or not. It's building those relationships. It's the interaction you get, and you're talking to someone from Greece and learning about them and the culture and everything. And it's not just going to eBay and buying it. Like you said, there's a little bit more work that's involved of it. And it's almost, it's not, obviously super cheap either to do it, but it's like you actually go to a dollar bin place and you go to a bunch of different comic book stores and you're there for hours and you find one decent one out of that and you're really excited. It's still only $1, but it was really cool finding it, and the hunt of it was really cool. That's what it seems like this is kind of being, and trying to do that. But to go back to some of the other questions that we had, for someone who wants to get into this, what would be, I guess, the easiest entry point? Obviously besides, Canada and Australia and the UK, what would be the easiest one for someone to get into a foreign edition that would have at least a little bit more of a supply, a little bit easier to get into, doesn't cost as much? What would be that gateway drug, if you want to say, to get their set going?
Western Europe.
Yeah, Western Europe, just because we've got, they took care of their books.
Yep.
And their climate, I think, is a little more friendly. Even though you could probably argue some of the print runs were smaller.
Like when you say smaller, what do you mean? How small is the print run for that?
Oh, you get a place like Iceland, and it could probably be, I can't remember what that guy said,
7,
Matt.
000.
Yeah. Under
6,
10 grand.
7,000. Yeah, under 10,000, which is.
It also depends on what it is. It really, if you're talking about Sweden, maybe a Marvel run would have been, 15, 20,000, but a Donald Duck run might have been 100,000 or something. I'm exaggerating, but
yeah,
sure.
My buddy that does the Disney's books says that, everything about foreigners in Western Europe, if it's Disney, you're going to have big print runs because that was the king. Yeah, Donald Duck is the king. He's probably the most printed comic book in the world. And then your runner-ups would be like Superman, and then maybe a Batman and Spider-Man.
Right. Well, you go to any antique store. What are you going to find? You're going to find a box of Donald Duck books. they're everywhere. You can't escape.
Yeah. We covered that. I think we covered that at one point in one of our More Mondays. Yeah. That was by far the largest, even here in America, right? That's by far the largest. A couple things I want to point out, and then back to the question of like maybe a checklist or something, is, going through these books like the Fantastic Four. I remember seeing some of these in like some of our comics as a kid, maybe Dale Gold Key. And what's interesting is we may see like a blue jay or something as a bird, where for them it's a bat. It's like, okay, that's interesting.
That's interesting stuff. And back to that question: why would you collect something that you can't read? Well, why do you collect slabs, dude? Why are people?
Yeah, you can't read them.
Slabs?
And with this one, it had this text at the bottom on every page. I'm like, what the hell is on here? So I went through Google Translate. And what this is, here on the bottom, it tells the story of the first railroad in Mexico and how it was such a big deal that the president of Mexico actually showed up to inaugurate the railroad, and it gives information about the railroad, like where it begins, where it ends. You know, and it was very interesting. It's like, wow, okay, they were so proud of this first national railroad that they gave a whole little history on the bottom. And
that's pretty cool.
You know, that'd be like thinking, you know, President of the United States going out inaugurating a new highway or railroad. That probably wouldn't happen. But for Mexico, it was such a, and you could feel it. You could feel it in the way that the story was told, that it was such a source of national pride that they had produced this. And it was in 1873.
Shelby, you're sounding like a foreign hunter, because that's what you do. That's okay. So that's, you're answering your own question then. You use Google Translate to learn about the books, to research the books. And, you know, like Scott was saying, that's the beauty as well. The books that even that you can't read, or cool back ads or whatever, it's all about that research. And now with technology, just because something's printed in a language you can't read, you can use technology to get over that hump. So that argument, why would you collect something that you can't read, really makes no sense,
right?
If you think about it. And when you are a foreign edition collector, you live your life with Google Translate and all the different translating apps and all the different CBR apps. And, you know, the databases, the foreign databases will help you know what's out there.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask is where, I mean,
you have to know the regional experts in the databases. So Jeff asked about the first Deadpool in Brazil. You'd have to know to go to Guia de Quadrinos, or you'd have to know to go to Aussie Reprints, which is the Aussie one. But this is something
look
special.
at that.
What is that?
I'm trying to get, oh, here you go.
There you go.
That's got the Marvel comic #1 in it.
Yeah, Submariner.
Wow.
That's
it's
huge.
it's a splash. It's actually not a splash page. It's a panel. It's 2 panels that were turned into the cover.
That is pretty cool.
Now, when people say, "Well, I can't read this," I can actually kind of read a little bit of Portuguese because it's the Spanish crossover. But, dude, hold this thing in your hands.
That's awesome.
That's a oh, look at that.
Wow.
So
how much money do people pay for a USA Tech 31 just for the cover? Think about it.
That came out in 1940. That is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, this is Marvel Mystery #9. But to answer your question, like, people go, "Well, I can't read it." Well, if you've got an Action 1 in a slab, you can't read that either.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you want to go read Marvel Mystery #9, then go get the reprint. I've got it in my thing over here. I can read the US edition if I want.
Yeah.
Right.
Have that sit on your desk and just, you know, oh, well, why wouldn't want to buy it if I can't read it? Well, you can't read your Tech 31 in your CGC slab either.
Yeah. So that question doesn't make sense if you think about it.
These are so,
I agree.
These are cool. Yeah. They reek of nostalgia. I mean, just.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, it's not only, obviously, Matt, you know, you're helping me, you know, look for some sets I want to collect. But now hearing about this, I'm actually thinking about, I want to try and go for some of the books that have, you know, Superman with Submariner on it, or Superman with Human Torch, or the combination that they kind of threw together, and some of this out of canon stuff, I think would be even cooler to even talk about.
So
it's very cool.
Brazil.
Well, again,
also,
I'm going to have to go ahead.
This cover is not a USA cover. It's a
no, it's not.
page.
That's incredible.
It's a splash page, and they redid the inks and everything. Now think about what people pay for a dumb 2nd edition variant cover, the Modern Movement.
Now, just for an example, you know, when we talk about it may be cheaper, you know, how much, or is it cheaper? Is it not cheaper than the American editions? Or how much would something like that, you know, go for? Or even maybe something maybe not as rare as that one, but.
Which you mean the one with the Marvel comic one?
Right.
you'll never see it for sale, so it's probably not even worth talking about it. I
Okay.
don't know
That's
what
not a
I would
good
sell it
example.
for.
What would be a good example of a common
Like
one?
Brazilian Golden Age, Scott. You're
How
looking
about
at
this
what?
one?
There you go.
It's got someone scribbled on the cover, but
That's okay.
I'm just kidding. It says Excelsior Stanley.
Stanley.
Okay, so this is an example of a book that's not easy to get, but it's accessible enough. So
I've seen it, but it's around 500 in really bad shape.
no, it would be if you can find one. The last one that sold that was a poor copy, I think it went for $1,100.
Yeah,
But if
you're not
you
gonna find them under a G anymore.
Oh yeah, no, they were. I don't. Most of the ones that I ever saw for sale were always over a G, and it's
Right.
in the 3 to 5 range now. And it might even be worse because the U.S. editions keep going up and up, and we're getting more books that are selling in parity with the U.S. edition. And these don't come up for sale, but like every other year, every couple of years. So you can't. It's like, how do you price, those Promise Collection that Heritage is selling? Those are once in a lifetime books. How do you price a once in a lifetime opportunity?
Right.
It's hard. I think it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. It was annual one that I found. I apologize.
Okay. So I know we're talking about older ones, but what about newer stuff? Like if you wanted a Spawn 300, could you get that cheaply in a foreign edition as well?
I'll defer to Matt on that. I don't really do modern
Yeah,
books.
you could, depending on how difficult some of these modern books now are. The foreign modern books are printed in really low print numbers. I wish Rob was here. Rob could talk about the modern stuff a little bit better than I. But yeah, you can find them. For the most part, I'd say that they're probably going to be cheaper. There's Rob. Speak of the devil, and
he's like Candyman. You say his name 3 times, and he appears in your feed.
You're going to be paying for shipping. I think shipping is going to be the thing that could make. Let's say we're talking a modern book. If it's not like a 1 in 100 or some weird variant that's got everyone wants the cover, you're probably going to pay $30 to get it, for shipping and handling, and then maybe the book's $15 or something. It just depends on where you get it.
Yeah,
and you usually have to pay you're going to have to pay people a handling fee. Sometimes you have to pay double shipping
or finder's fees.
Yeah, like I got a buddy, Jim Wassey. He buys me something on Mercado Libre in Brazil. I pay him, a tip to get the book. Plus, I have to pay the shipping twice. By the time I get the book, depending on what it is, the shipping could be expensive. I'll use DHL for high-end books.
So last Monday, right after the show, I ordered those 3 books. They came from Guerrero, Mexico.
Mexico.
Well, Mexico.
Okay.
and it cost me, I think, $22, and I had them by Thursday.
It's not bad.
That's really good. That's better than a lot of eBay shippers in America.
That's better than in America. I know, right?
I think Rob's in the background.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't see him. He didn't pop up here.
Hey, Shelby, sometimes depending on where they live, if they're close to the border, there's U.S. post offices.
I'm wondering if it's close to the border. I should have looked. But
Some of those
since I'm right here in Texas.
Some of those cities
and Houston.
Yeah.
It
usually takes the U.S. post or the Mexi post usually takes about a month.
Yeah.
If it's like true Mexican post.
Can see what
I can't read.
What Guartardo?
I can't read.
Guartardo. Guartardo. I'm not sure where that is.
I don't know either.
But one of your fears, Shelby, was was getting stuff shipped.
I'll tell you this, and the person was
that is an acceptable fear.
You know what? The person was super nice, and actually, what happened was I moved the 3 books to my cart. They couldn't do a combined invoice. And you could tell that it took a minute to translate, right? Like I would send a message and then, they would respond in this kind of weird English. But yeah, they even like refunded me the extra shipping. I got it in 3 days. They were super nice. So, now I had a really good experience. Now I am waiting on one more book that I haven't seen yet. Which is an older FF that I paid a couple of $100 for. I sprung for a nice, Luprin's FF key.
Shelby, so one of the tricks I want to give everyone here is that when you're dealing with foreign sellers, it's usually best to Google Translate your question first, right? And don't type it like you would in English, because the translation algorithm is still not as good as like a human translator. So do it very basic. Hello, my name is such and such. I'm interested in a combined ship. Do you speak English? Start it in their language, because I think what it does is it just gets you on the right foot with a lot of foreign sellers. If they think that you're trying to communicate with them, even if it's just broken using Google Translate, I always tell everyone, when you first contact a foreign seller, use their language and tell them, if you speak English, we can talk in English, and if not, we'll just translate. But that's just a little trick.
Politeness goes a long way, right?
Put you on, to put you on.
That's great advice.
To put you on just a good footing with a foreign seller. And, you gotta, and the other thing is, I guess the other really big thing that I'm going to segue into right here is, I told the horror story of getting an Italian 300 in a manila envelope. That, we talked about checking a lot of our American
expectations
at the door. You got to check shipping expectations as well. Foreign sellers are not going to ship as well as Americans. Even if you tell them, I'll pay extra if you add it in between cardboard. They might add like a real loose cardboard, or
they may not have cardboard.
They might not have it. You have to understand that culturally, for a lot of them, comics, they don't take the books.
And they don't have Office Depot down the street that's got all those supplies.
Right.
So you've got to cut them some slack, and you've got to cut the length of time slack too. Like, I know there have been a couple sellers in Mexico that have complained with selling to Americans, and then the Americans go and open up a PayPal thing with them saying, I never received my package, because
it's been 5 days.
Like they can't wrap their head around this idea that a package coming from a foreign country can get stuck in customs for 2 weeks, there's all kinds of stuff that you just don't understand. And so some of these foreign sellers, particularly from Mexico or South America, will get hit with Americans basically taking them to PayPal and trying to get their money back. And they're like, no, it's still in the mail. So long story short,
here's another one that we
got to check some of those.
Another one, Matt, that we need to bring up is the sense of urgency.
Oh, yes.
They don't.
Yes.
A lot of countries don't have the same sense of urgency to get things done. So you might say, let's say, Shelby, you want to buy this book from a dude in like Uruguay or Argentina or something, Venezuela, and you send him the money, and he's like, cool, I'll work on it. But you forget that maybe he's going to have to go, like, in his mind, he's going to send you the book. But he's not going to, like, as soon as he hangs up, run to the post office and get the book in the mail.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is it could take like 1 to 2 weeks, and then they send you, hey, I got the book shipped, you'll get it. And then you got to wait, another, month to get the book. But a lot of people don't have that patience. They want the tracking numbers. Like, well, you may not get a tracking number, or tracking number may be a while before it even shows up on the U.S.
Yeah, well,
if it ever does.
Yeah, trust me, as much as Jeff and I ship out, believe me, people get very picky, and they will automatically throw you a negative comment if it's not in what time they think it should be. And it's
right.
Americans suck.
All right.
Wait. Yeah, and that's we're
patient. We want it now.
You've got to be patient. It's like in America, time runs. In Mexico,
if you want it now,
it walks.
If you want it now, you can pay what we call affectionately the eBay premium, and it doesn't literally have to be on eBay. I mean,
American premium.
It's the American premium. It'll be like if you said, "Oh, well, Scott's got this book. I want this book." Here, I'll show. Let's.
I was gonna say, we need more show and tell. Let's see some more books here.
Here's a book.
Oh, look at that. First man thing.
Swamp Thing.
So explain to me, like, I ordered a Batman and I saw that EN with the fish symbol. And then the other was, I'm assuming this was Navarro with the N. What publisher?
It's all Navarro.
It's all Navarro.
Just different generations. The
way
you can tell Navarro is the triangle.
Well, we're keeping it simple, Matt, because we're not going to get into like the epical and some of the other.
Oh, yeah.
So, just
keep it simple right now.
Just keep it simple. The main thing is that you just know it's Navarro. Just keep that in your mind for now. And as you sort of get used to that and you start wanting to hunt for books, you'll be like, oh, well, this one says Columbia on it. And, this one says epical, but this other one doesn't. Yeah. See, it takes a while to learn all the sub-licensing that can go on. It gets pretty convoluted.
Matt, let's see some of those books behind you right there. Can we see some of those? Can we see some of those books? You got ASM back there.
Oh, you want to see ASM 129?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, give me a second.
All right.
While he's doing that, let's talk about the price. So
is there a book or a website or something that lists out, that La Prensa 1 through 168 was Fantastic Four? Okay, there's not. I mean, I'm talking about just Mexican, because right now my entry is Mexican, but I do want to talk to y'all more offline about the Western European market, because I've done some eBay searches while we're sitting here, and I can't get a hit at all on Swedish, Icelandic, nothing.
Okay, so
let's start back at the first thing with price and list.
This will help people. I'm using an exaggerated example that's real to help people appreciate the concept, and then the truth is everywhere in between.
Okay.
This is an example of a book that if you could find it, you might find someone that isn't close to the hobby and doesn't have a pulse on the current market. And just like someone that finds an Action 1 in their closet and doesn't know the true value, you could probably get it for way under market value. That is possible. So let's just argue that you could find this for 50 to say $500. The reality is that if you want to buy this from someone who already has it, there's a waiting list of people who want this, and I could probably get, anywhere from say 1,800 to maybe upwards of $3,000. I don't know what the high end would be on this. We have copies that have sold in the 2K range already, but the precedence is rapidly increasing for books like this because there's just a finite amount that have come to the surface in the last 10 years. So to answer the question, it's like, if you want to buy it from a safe person who has it, I'm going to ship it, and you threw me a stupid offer. I'm not selling this book, by the way, but if I needed like $3,000, I could probably get it without twisting anyone's arm. But right. Shelby, you could go online and you could luck out and meet someone in Peru that has it, and he wants $200 for it. So it really is a waiting game and a luck game. It's much like it was in the 70s and 80s, where I found a showcase number 4 in an antique shop in 1990. And I flipped it and I paid for the car that I wrecked. I wrecked my dad's car and I paid for it with that. But I only paid $400 for a showcase 4 from an antique dealer in the 1990s. It can happen. I don't think that would happen today. It would be harder unless someone had a locker.
But we had one of the last shows. We talked about people still finding stuff in attics and in closets.
Like someone passes away and they don't know what they have. That's when you can get those deals. So
Showcase 4's first appearance of the Silver Age Flash, which starts the Silver Age for those of you that aren't.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I just assumed
we all understood what
you know what you meant.
What a Showcase 4 was.
So anyway, I just wanted to give you the reality of like how pricing can work and the difference between buying it from, American or stateside versus finding it in the wild on your own.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people know they're going to pay a premium. It's just like if you buy someone's already got a CGC slab that they've got it, you're going to pay a premium for it, even though you can buy the book raw yourself, send it in, wait 6 months to a year to get it back. It'll be cheaper if you do it that way, but people I want it now, that whole we want it now mentality. We know we're going to pay a lot more. So that's part of the reason why I think this market is gaining on traction. People, like you said, are love the passion about it, doing the legwork, and for them it's fun. And then they can turn around and flip it right away because people want to pay a lot for it because they don't want to do the legwork.
Yep, you can find it a lot cheaper.
Yep.
If you're doing the work in, say, for instance, a Peruvian Facebook comic group, and you find that Mexican Haas 92, and then you go in and you pay, like Scott said, $400 or $500, and then you can come onto the American market and flip it. That's the American premium. But the American premium exists because the book's here in America. You know it's going to be shipped right. You're not going to have to deal with customs problems.
Yep.
So that's what Scott means.
It's totally the barrier. It's the barriers. The premium exists because of the barriers to entry.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. All right. What do you got for us, Matt?
Okay. You want to see foreign 129s?
Yes, indeed.
Here is the second Greek 129.
Nice.
Here is the Spanish 129, publisher Bulgaria.
Nice.
This was printed in the 80s, I believe, so it's not as vintage as some. Here is a super rare Colombian 129. Scott can tell you this is a monster right here. This is a real monster. I mean, Scott sold one of these missing a back cover for a G.
And it's sold in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Minutes.
And I had people like, "Oh, I missed it. I would have bought that." I'm like,
oh, it's a ghost. This is what I call the Brazilian white. It's the second Spidey 129 in Brazil. It was published by RGE, and that white cover is just rad. It is smaller, very cool. I have the first Brazilian, but I don't have it in this stack. Spindelmannen is the Swedish 129.
That's cool.
Spineman is the Dutch.
Spineman.
I don't know how exactly to pronounce that. This is an extremely cool one. This is the former Yugoslavian 129. So the reason you call it former is because Yugoslavia, of course, got shattered into a million pieces during their civil war.
Hey, Matt, why don't you pull up that one in the Colombian and tell them about what designation we give those books.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm curious in is it's got a picture of J. Jonah Jameson in the corner and it says Donis. Does that mean asshole in American or?
I don't know. I can't find out. But so there's also something that we call conflict books. Now, conflict books, sort of like Conflict Diamonds, right, are books that had to undergo either a war or a cultural upheaval, or in Colombia at the time it would be the war on drugs, right? So this was actually printed in late 70s, early 80s, Scott. I forget what year this book was specifically printed, but there would have been a lot of these around during the early 80s. Now, everyone's seen Narcos, right?
Yeah.
Colombia was on fire. There was literally a war between the government and what's his name? The big
FARC. It was a combination of.
It was a combination between the FARC and
military, and
the big drug lord Pablo Escobar. So
for the narco side of it,
yeah. So you had in Colombia, you had just horrible violence daily. You had the narcos actually blowing up airlines. That's a war. I'm sorry, but that's a war. So these books had to survive these very troubling things. In Yugoslavia, it was a civil war that was shattering the country apart. And, people forget that the Yugoslavian Civil War had one of the last major sieges of a European city ever since, and that would be the siege of Sarajevo. I believe Sarajevo was under siege for what was it? I think it was 6 or 7 months, maybe even a year, that they didn't have electricity, running water, food. Imagine, how many young kids in Sarajevo took their stacks of EKS comics and burned them for fuel? That is a conflict book.
They burned German marks for fuel when they had all that inflation after the war.
Yeah.
So think about now comic books.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Not a big deal. So go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say that the conflict there also helps you understand why a book might be scarce. Those are not the Colombian's really hard to get, but the EKS is not an easy one either. They've gotten some to come out of the woodwork, but they just get harder and harder to find. You don't see them as frequently as you used to. So if you've been in the hobby, if you've been in the foreign niche for 3 years, you might be a little overconfident in thinking you could just run out and buy one.
Not with these.
The supplies are drying up on a lot of these books,
and
we're seeing prices escalate, and prices escalate fast.
Right. That's the interesting about these. Like I said, it's not just collecting the comic; it's the story, behind everything. That's just fascinating.
Yep. Yeah. The stories are just as important. Mexican.
Oh, that's a nice red one right there.
Yeah,
I like that.
One of Scott's favorites, the edition Opiesa Mac. This one came after La Prensa and is extremely tough. Finnish giveaway, mail away. This was a mail away to Finnish subscribers. So this wasn't even sold on the stands. You had to, this was only sold and mailed to the subscribers.
In the 90s. Okay.
Yep. And so think about that. Very, very low print runs. The Italian, Lo Moragno.
Was that Spawn 9 back there? Was that a foreign one or a regular?
Oh, this is a foreign one.
Oh, let's see that.
This is the Battle Axe Press South African. So this is the first Angela essay, South African.
Nice. Okay, so for example, what's the pricing?
Finish 300.
How much would something like that cost? A more modern book like that?
On a more modern Copper Age book, the South African stuff is still very hard to get out of South Africa, though there is some of it in Australia, New Zealand, and England.
I think the shipping's expensive there too.
And shipping is a bitch out of South Africa.
Yeah, shipping. We all know we're going to pay a lot for shipping. That's a given.
Yeah, I would say that this book should run you in decent condition between $50 and $100. But with the popularity of Angela going up, and with I could reasonably see this copy isn't so nice. It's a little rough. I think I paid $50 for it, right? But a really nice slab candidate South African, I've got to assume they're rare, and so I would say that if I had one and I was going to sell one, I'd want at least $200-300 for it, because again, we're getting into that whole kind of, you check grade snobbery at the door, but what that does mean is that when you do find books that are of amazing quality, like this French Canadian 129, you will pay a premium over normally what they go for, right? simply because you're not going to find them that nice. So when you find a really nice one, I almost feel like the seller can almost ask whatever they want. And if you're not going to pay for it, it's that whole thing we talk about often where we say, okay, you don't want to pay for it? Well, then you go find one that nice.
Right.
Good luck. It's going to take you years. So, that's kind of the attitude. I'm a set builder, so I try to find as many books that I can get for my set. So I build the Angela set. So in that sense, I don't really go crazy over the condition necessarily. But some people are different. Some people might say, instead of having 10 foreigns, I'd rather have 5, but they're the nicest copies.
But nice quality. I like how that 300, it has the Venom name and not the 300 because the 300 probably didn't mean anything for them, right?
Didn't mean anything to them. Mr. Hamakami's.
That looks really cool.
Yeah, that's this is the German Spider-Man.
Kingpin?
50. Yep, first Kingpin. Got the hit right up there. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. Scott, show off some of. I know Scott's got some good eye candy with him. Show off some more eye candy, Scott.
He's got the bangers.
Okay. Yeah.
He's got bangers. Trust me, he does.
Let me go back and answer a question. I was a little sarcastic on one of them when you were asking about like the Brazilian Golden Age. You may not get to pick the issue that you want. If you said, "Hey, I would love to have a timely Golden Age Brazilian," you could probably find one. You just aren't going to get to pick the issue you want. You'll just get what's out there. You will probably pay anywhere from, say, a couple $100 for a less cool cover all the way up to a couple $1,000. The median is probably going to be about $500 to $700, and that maybe that door is already closed. I really haven't hunted for them in the last 8 months, but it seems like the market is escalating fast.
It has.
And it's hard for me. I don't want to sit here and say you can get one for $300 or $400, and then something shows up for $8, and you're like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to pay $8," and then I'll feel bad that you missed out. But I'm just trying to give you guys kind of a range. I've seen them sell for a couple $1,000. Really, really good covers can sell for that high price, whereas mediocre covers that are still cool if you don't have anything, you could probably there's some good guys in our group that still pull those up that, I think $300-400 would probably land you something. It's not gonna be like the classic, covers that blow your mind, but you can get one. Let's see, with the Prenzas here, the one thing I'll mention with condition, this is an example of a book. If you had it in your hands, you'd say it almost looks like it wasn't ever read. It looks like it sat in a box, and the only thing it did is it got a little spine roll, and then the edges, because the paper is so thin, it almost has like not Marvel chipping, but the paper just gets bent from maybe being in a box.
Let me just take care of that for you. Someone's written on it. It,
you don't want that one.
Yeah, come on. Let me just take. Yeah.
You want to take that off his hands?
Yeah,
Shelby?
just, you don't want that in your collection. Writing and stuff, that's just...
No, we don't need any of that kind
now,
of stuff.
those I almost bought this past a couple of... not these, but yeah.
These are ghosts.
Translate that for me, because I did not translate that.
Oh, it's Mysteries of the Black Cat.
Black Cat, thank you. Yeah, because those are actually Tales to Astonish covers.
It's Tales to Astonish, but sometimes they mix in Tales of Suspense.
Yes.
See, when this came out, it came out the same month as the Marvel. They were all coming out at the same time. When the superheroes hit the scene, everything got staggered by 6 to 9 months, depending on the book. So like there must have been a big lag between this and the issue before it, because I think there was some licensing rule where they wanted a lag, because I'm pretty sure I've talked to people that said you could buy American books overseas, and they always tell you to prefer the La Prensa over the other edition, but they don't tell you it's the other edition. I assume they're talking about the U.S. edition. Two very, very hard books to get. You could still buy this one from Al at Basement Comics if he'll sell it. It's a 7.0, and that's just unheard of. Like, to find a copy that nice.
Yeah, and I think I said Tales to Astonish. I think I meant Tales of Suspense there. So I apologize. Don't take away my comic book collector card.
No, I'm just saying that
But no, I was looking on eBay and I did notice a lot of those that seem to be again, I want to say anthology, but they seem to mix a lot of different books into that Tales of the Black Cat series. There.
In the beginning, in the 50s, it was very heavy mixture with Atlas. And then when you start getting into like 58, 59, it feels like they are less likely to do that, because I think Marvel started putting out more material. You have like, I don't know them all. I don't collect the pre-hero stuff, but they have like Worlds of the Unknown and da-da-da-da-da. And I think they had like 7 or 8 titles. Strange Tales, Suspense, all that stuff. And they commingle them all into those 2
let's see that Avengers #4. Come on.
Oh, I didn't grab that one, but here's one that this is probably the rarest. This in issue 7. I collect runs, so I'm building the whole run, but 4 and 7 are the hardest ones to get.
Well, I'm a huge Fantastic Four collector. I have 12 long boxes of Fantastic Four. I am complete from like number 13 all the way up. So if you've got any duplicates, I'll very happily.
This is an expensive book now.
Oh yeah, that book is a ghost. What known copy, Scott? Definitely under 10, right? You know of?
I think we might be in the 12. You listen to me. I'm like, no, there might be 12 instead of 10.
You're totally wrong.
Like there's any difference, right?
I know.
We're splitting hairs like it makes.
Yeah, you're about to put me on a ventilator, dude. I am freaking.
There it is.
That's a nice one too. Yep.
This is a hard book to get, and I overpaid. Did you hear me?
Thank you, Rob. I just met him, and I was thinking the same thing, but he may have some duplicates, so I wasn't going to say it.
This one's hard.
There you go.
Oh, that is freaking awesome. I love the logo treatment there. That's freaking awesome.
The Prince of Atlantis.
Oh.
I like the logos and the inking and all that. They're far superior to the USA edition.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, when I was looking through these, I mean, even the ones from 65 here, they have such deep, dark colors. Wow.
Just shuts everyone up with that.
If you're a completionist, this will give you fits right here. I've only seen 2 of these ever for sale. I got this from Ulysses. Matt, when Ulysses finally decided he was cashing out, I had like 5 or 6 books on my list, and I said, I have to have these books. And boy, he charged
for his wedding. He was trying to pay for his wedding. a woman did it.
That was my theory because I saw him being engaged on Facebook.
Oh yeah, she made him sell them.
There you go.
Wow.
Number 1.
And that's an amazing.
That's a beautiful book.
I didn't get the Avengers out because, well, actually,
what was that one that you showed a minute ago with Cap on it? Not the Cap number 1.
111.
One with
not the one. Yeah, that was the one. Yeah,
Stranko's 111. Yeah. Now, if you're a if you're a completionist.
Oh my God! Look at that.
This is the first issue.
Tough one.
But this one's very, very difficult. And the condition on these early ones, when they rebooted and gave them all their titles, the paper is like super, super thin. You do not want to try pressing a lot of these books. They'll ruin.
Yeah, they'll tear.
So for something like that, for something like Captain America, with the name Captain America, I mean, did a lot of other foreign countries produce that one, or how well liked was America in a lot of these countries?
God, Captain America was loved everywhere.
Yeah, he was. Okay.
I'm actually surprised of all the places you find Cap.
Okay, that was my first thought. I'd be surprised too. So that's interesting.
He's in Brazil. He's in Brazil in 1943.
Really?
Yeah, Robert. He could show. He's got a. Which Gary did Robert get? Was it?
I forget. It was one of the way early ones, though. It was like one of the. I thought it was.
Rob's got one of the really good early.
Maybe the
Gary's.
first 5. It's one of the first 5.
In Brazil, Oguri was the Diary of the Knights, the publisher. Oguri 88. Okay. Yeah, that's
Oguri
a good 88.
One, man. Yeah, Rob's. I mean, yeah, some early Caps. Caps in the Philippines. He's all over the place.
Yeah, Rob's got the second one. They're ghost books. The Avengers. The Vengadores 1 is Avengers number 4, but that one's not terribly, terribly rare. So there's hope for you. But this is the one that's so hard to get if you're trying to complete like 1 through 10, just as an example. This would be the one you want to get because this is a very, very rare book. I don't know why some of these are rare. I think it's just like with the U.S. books. Maybe the distribution was bad or it just didn't sell well that month. I mean, who knows? Yeah.
Something could have been going on, something culturally that was already had people's attentions or people were spending money on. They just didn't have the disposable income on that month. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons.
That's that Tales to Astonish 92, wherever I put it now. I can't find it. That's a hard one to get too. I don't know why. You just never see it. I think because it's toward the end. So to Shelby's question, when do they start and when do the titles stop? Like the Vengadores starts Avengers number 4, but then it commingles the last part of Tales to Astonish in it. And then to mix things up, they brought in they bring in the Avengers with the I'm mixing this up. Journey into Mystery. They skipped a whole bunch of issues with Journey into Mystery. So they brought Journey into Mystery in and Vengadores like 33 or 34, I can't remember. But before you know it, you've got Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense. I'm sorry, that's the one I was trying to think of. They bring that one in because, see, they never did, and this is going to make a lot of people cry. They never did Tales of Suspense 39, and they don't start Tales of Suspense till was it 59? It's after the really cool cover with him with the shield. They didn't do that one. It was the one after it that they did. So in Vengadores, you've got like every week they're publishing a new issue and they've got 4 titles in it. And then around issue 120, 122, it was 122 was the last one. Then they split off into the literal titles like Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America. Can't remember them all.
Thor, yeah.
Thor, thank you.
Yeah.
So
was recycling paper big in the? I mean, it sounds like culturally, comic books were kids' things, and they were just not treated well, and they were thrown out. Was recycling a big thing to get rid of the paper?
I'm not really sure, but I can tell you that the paper quality varies. In most cases, I think the interior paper far superior than U.S. books.
Oh, really?
And like with Iron Man, I did because I've got the whole run, I did a study, and the paper quality of the covers varies. So like issue 1 is super paper thin, issue 2 is really thick and supple. So I'm guessing that issue 2 is easier to find in high grade, whereas issue 1 is nearly impossible to find. Period.
Yeah,
it's always rough. When you do find it, it's always beat up.
I do too. Not nearly as nice as Scott's, but
well, mine's really not that nice, Matt. It's I think
it's nicer than this one.
Oh, that's just because you think the grass is greener.
Anything on Scott's side is always better. I think we've
He's got a
established
good
that.
eye.
I guess what I'm trying to say is in some of these books, if you understand that the paper quality is low and you see it for sale, you might be like, you know what, that 111 cap in a Prensa has bad paper quality. Buy it if you find it. Because one, I don't ever see it come up for sale very often. But if it's in a low grade, you can always upgrade later. You may not see it again for several years.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
And I don't want people to start, scalping prices because I'm on here saying buy whatever you see. You got to be diligent. There's always competition for other books, so
Right.
And you got to do your own research.
your average Prince is probably going to run, 35, and if you buy it stateside, well, that's probably stateside because you got to factor in shipping. I just sold a few, and they were like, I don't think I hardly made any money on them. I'm just trying to move them. I really don't have any duplicates left, though. I'm sorry, Shelby.
Shelby.
Let me answer another question that got
Is there
brought up
another question in there?
Yeah, I want to answer the question about date.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, foreign collectors tend to prefer the foreign editions that were printed the closest to their American print date. But that is not a hard and fast rule because sometimes, depending on the edition, and the Colombian being another example of that, the Colombian wasn't printed until much later. Where did I put it?
That whole Greco Cinco series came out over about, I think, 24 months.
Yeah.
It's like,
so
whatever
this
the
was
date
printed-
is, if it's like 82, 81, I can't remember. I'd have to go look.
It's either 79 or 80 or maybe 81. I forget on this one. But this is a clear example where,
that's the
Mexican
king right there. That's the
yeah.
big
This
one.
is the king because yes, we care that the books were printed close to their to the American print run date, but it doesn't. It's not the end all be all. There will still be vintage books like this Colombian that will be just worth more than say a second Mexican. This was printed in the 80s. So this was printed similar to the same time as the Colombian, but the Colombian, because it's so infinitely tougher to find a buying op, is the one that is, garners the most money. So again, we're getting back to that thing about there's not any of these hard, fast rules, and you just got to kind of know it. Rob's Comics, the Johnny Appleseed of foreign.
He made it.
What is up, Rob? Welcome to the show. He just shows up and look what I got.
He's got some EH.
He's
French
showing
Canadian.
some French Canadian FFs for you there, Shelby.
Say.
There you go, Shelby. Shelby's got his nerd boner.
I am about
because I
to.
have this one.
Oh,
there you go.
yes.
Little Black Panther
Yes.
love.
That is a great one. How goes it, Rob?
Pretty good. First day of school here in Maryland, so just getting to the swing of things.
Yeah, I'm looking for you right now on IG. So
All of a sudden,
Now,
your
Rob
inbox is
does
going to be
have a
flooded.
tendency to sell some of his books, so
Yeah, I do. I heard you guys talk about the shipping thing earlier. I do a thing where I build a nice little stack so it saves
Yeah.
on shipping. And that's the way the shipping doesn't feel as bad. You can break up the cost amongst several books. So
Yep.
we have
Yeah.
that little system going amongst ourselves. Like we have one person send to us and say if Scott has books and Matt has books, we just bundle it and then we all ship it out to whoever. So it's a nice little buddy system.
that's something that's getting into more advanced techniques, guys. Jeff and Shelby. The more advanced technique is using the group to help you not only source the books but defray some of the shipping costs. So, say in the group we got a Danish seller by the name of Claus, and Rob buys 3 books off him, and I happen to have a deal where I'm buying 5 books off him or whatever. We just combine it, and Claus ships it to one of us, and then we separate them out to who it needs to go. And that's
Makes a
how
lot of
one
sense.
of the ways we use the community to help defray some of the costs.
And if
that happens a lot.
And if you know the people, like, you got Nadim, you got all these Kloss, you got all these people that we know. Mm-hmm. So you can build a hey, I want these 10 different books, but it may take them a while to source them all.
So is the name of the game here.
Yeah, you just you send them money, and then they just build a stack for you. And then when they're like, okay, there's nothing else you want, you just say, hey, send me the books.
Yep. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at that She-Hulk cover on Rob's IG and drooling. I had to wipe my mouth off.
So if you haven't figured out yet, do not bundle all the books and ship them to Shelby to disperse between you, because it will not happen.
Yeah, Shelby, that you got to be trusted. If I ship books to you, you got to promise me they're going to come my way.
I'm most trustworthy person. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Wow. There you go.
God.
Kevin Nolan art out of Brazil. Now, these were shoved in newspaper as like one of the, you know how the penny savers are?
Help me source that. Help me source that, what I need to look for.
Yeah.
But I was noticing the Agent Carter. I'm a huge Agent Carter fan. So I'm going to send you a message on IG. Explain to me what I was looking at there, because I'm a huge Agent Carter fan.
Oh, that's a U.S. book. That's just a
I knew that, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, an official guide.
Foreign show, Shelby.
That's why I said I'm sending a message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I got something interesting that you don't see every day, guys.
Everything that's been shown right now, we have not seen.
Okay. So the Vampire series was a Dutch series. Okay. And I'm going to do this like this. So the Vampire series was a Dutch series, and this Dutch book, right, is Werewolf by Night. I forget what issue it is. But remember how we were talking about licensors not caring about what their stuff appeared in? This series also printed horror. And on the back, I got to cover this a certain way. On the back, this is a horror book that is basically a guy. Okay, so you got Ghost Rider up there, right?
Yeah.
It's a guy taking a woman, chopping her up, putting her in the oven.
Holy cow.
Oh, wow.
So do you see how he was an artist and he was painting her, and that's her leg. And I'm trying to keep that from...
Looks like the leg from Christmas Story.
Yeah, anyway, she's in pieces. So
that's a Saturday night.
There you go.
So,
hey, Matthew, I think you said it was Kevin Nolan, or was that right? The Brazilian She-Hulk? Is that Kevin?
Oh, Matthew, you stay away from my comic books before I even get them.
That was it was Kevin Nolan was the
artist on it.
Comics del Sol. It was Spanish. Yeah.
He did that one and did the graphic novel She-Hulk, the one where she's on the all black cover in the muscle pose. The sensational She-Hulk one is inside the story, which they use this as a cover. I have it posted on IG to the three book set. And Brian Bolin homaged this art on the inside of that Fantastic Four.
Hold on, I'm finding you right now. Hold on.
I got another one you don't see every day, Mexican. What is it? The Young Men, the Shrunken Head cover. Very cool. And then, of course, we can't go wrong. That's a cool book.
There you go.
And not La Prensa. This was a publisher called El Sol. ES, or Una Revista El Sol. And then back to our lovely La Prensa. There is the Spider-Man 50 La Prensa.
There's the Kingpin, yeah.
Oh, man. Just these three guys that are sitting in your show right here, like, we've probably pulled so many badass key books out of some of these countries. Oh, man.
Poison Ivy, look at that.
Brazilian E-Ball.
Brazilian E-Ball, baby.
There's no poster in this one, so don't freak out. There's no poster. There's no poster that comes in this.
Yeah, some of those books have posters.
Yeah.
Australia's got tends to have posters in like the Newtons, and then
Italy.
Italy's going to have some posters. And then what's the Block? Is it Henry Block? No, Block.
Oh, Block. That's Brazilian.
The Brazilian Blocks. They're mid 70s.
Yeah, this is a poster book by McFarlane too.
What?
This is magazine size, 32 posters.
Brazilian.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Nice.
I have this posted in IG too. All the pictures is inside of here. So it's a lot of the classic artwork like 300, 301, a couple of the graphic novels, that 1 in 1000 Venom, whereas Eddie Brock and Venom to the side. So this is one of my 301 sets. So this kind of goes with it. Once again, that's on my IG too. But
Nice.
a lot of these are, it's about buying opportunity. Scott kind of coined that phrase where it's like you can find it for cheap or find it for expensive, but it can be found. It's just when you see it, you better jump on it.
Oh, the context. That's good that you brought that up, Rob. The context was we were having a heated debate about the scarcity because, and there's validity on all sides of this debate. The problem is we don't know all the issues that are out there. It's kind of like saying that, the Gerber guide calls, I don't know, More Fun 73, a Gerber 7 or maybe Gerber 8 or something like, oh, there's only 72 known copies. Well, how do they know that there's 72 copies? If it's known within a local community, blah, blah, blah. So we turned it on its head and said, let's focus on buying opportunities because that's really what we're as collectors dealing with. And that makes it a little more tangible, and it doesn't put people in a box to say, well, there's only, like we were saying earlier, how many Colombian 129s do we know? How many Haas 92s from Mexico do we know about? There aren't that many in circulation, and there aren't many new ones that come to market. Like maybe every other year a new one comes to market. So if that means at that pace, you might have 20 copies in circulation. So you do the math on how rare that is versus your, 1 in 100 variant. They're ghost books.
Right.
So you factor that in when you're trying to decide how much you're willing to pay, because a lot of times, like I said, there's no price guide.
Yeah.
I have one.
I just want a checklist. I just want, to know, like, 1965 La Parenza FF1 up to, at least a checklist,
Balda Comics, the database.
You're lucky. Yeah. You're lucky, the database. We'll get you the link. We'll put the link. I'll look you up and get you the link.
The databases matter. Those are going to be your friend, but you got to know where to find them and how to access them.
All right, let's take a look at this one. We got to wrap up in a few minutes here.
Yeah, shout out to a guy in the group named JF Tremblay. He this is from Mexico, of course. That's Navarro that we were talking about, that y'all were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's not the number. This is a Wonder Woman 204, but the numbers are not on the outside cover. But when you think of scarcity, I hopped on this the moment it came up. But he got this from a collection versus finding it in the store. But we don't talk about scarcity. I've only seen these once, and I bought it. So, like, the cover's detached on this. This one is a 3.0. You can see all the writing on it. So when we talk condition, we really mean it, because you might not see it again. And I haven't seen one since, and I've been looking. So this is the thing.
Pure DC is hard.
Scarcity is definitely the big thing here.
Scarcity, like I said, the grade snobbery, throw it out the window. You find it, basically get it. Okay, so we'll do a couple of takeaways here, because I know everyone's got to get going here, because I appreciate everyone's time. Matt, Scott, Rob, I appreciate you guys showing up here. So the big takeaways, obviously, number one, go down below, join the FCC Facebook group. That is number one. Join the community. Everyone helps each other out there. We can find what you're looking for. It's going to be a long haul. You need to have some patience doing this here to build some sets. But yeah, again, I appreciate everyone for doing that. You can keep sending questions to us. DM those questions. We may do another part 3 coming up as well. But again, the amount of knowledge that you three have here is absolutely amazing. I appreciate you guys for coming on board because you got me and Shelby hooked on all this stuff now. So we'll be more active now in the FCC group for sure. And again, yep.
And you can ask questions in the FCC group. You can ask questions. You can ask, you can ask for help. A lot of, it's a very welcoming place where you can get a lot of your questions answered. If you're new and you're just
right,
you can, like say you're looking for a specific book. What we get a lot in there too is new guys taking the American book, showing it in there and going, "Hey guys, how many foreign editions do we know of this? Can you guys help me out?" And all the old guys will come in and post and so we can. It's a big knowledge sharing situation.
That's awesome, and that's one benefit of a Facebook group as opposed to IG and YouTube and everything is you can interact with each other and you have the moderators and all the knowledge that you already have there. And on the side, you've got all the magazines there as well people can read.
Yep, that's why I love Facebook.
Yep. I downloaded all of them. I've read the first 2 issues. Really great stuff. But Rob, did you say did I think I interrupted you just then?
No, I said everybody's a Padawan until you learn from the Jedi Masters.
Right. Well, and that's what I dropped the video. Yeah. I dropped the video this week of my mail call where I unboxed these 3 that I bought. And that's why I said is I'm learning, right? So I bought them from 3 different publishers, but obviously these 2 are both Navarro, but different eras, right? Just so I can look at the paper, look at the printing difference, and start understanding something. And these were, I think, $15 each or something. And, so it's pretty reasonable. But yeah, I that's one of the big things about this show. It's why we did do this show is for education, history, things like that. And I'm about to definitely enjoy myself bugging the crap out of y'all with some things. Look at that.
That's unreal right there. That's
you got to end on that note right there.
Yeah. I've seen it around 9.4. That's amazing.
That'd be like a late 60s book getting a 10.0.
That's crazy. That's the Gwen Stacy booty cover.
Oh, yeah. You cannot.
That's the booty variant.
Booty.
Yeah, I think that was shown on Comic Tom or something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Take us out, Shelby.
All right. So real quick, next week, next week we will be on my channel. We'll be switching up, and we're going to be talking about market manipulation in comic books. There's been a lot of news lately about market manipulation with video games. We know that it happened with coins back in the 80s, but I've been doing some research over the past week, and I think you're going to find some very surprising data that we'll be presenting about market manipulation in comics. So definitely join us for that. Otherwise, hey, thank you to all the panel. Matthew for being here the past couple of weeks, answering my questions and stuff. Scott, so great to meet you. You're up in Dallas, so you're not too far away. So I will be up in Dallas next month. Well, yeah, September hadn't started yet. For a Dallas Fan Days con, maybe we can hook up. Rob, I'll be bugging you. Scott said he doesn't have anything for sale anymore, but look at that, teasing me, man, making my nerd thing jingle. But anyway, hey, with that, take us out. So peace, love, and comics.
Thank you much, guys.
Later.
Guys.